Oh, I'm not allowed to clean up early? Have it your way. I am a master's student who works as a TA for a class of 60 students. It is a lab course, so there is a ton of setup and cleanup. I usually end up working an extra hour or two past the end of lab, which I get paid for, but it does mean I go home really late. So I started tidying up once most of the students were gone. There is another TA and the professor to answer questions. I did this for a few weeks until I missed a student's question. The professor yelled at me and embarrassed me in front of the student for not doing my job. The other TA was on his phone and the professor was standing at the front not doing anything. He told me to absolutely not clean up until all the students were gone. We had one student that always stayed over an hour later than everyone else. The next week this student was the only one in the lab for over an hour past the end of lab. The other TA was helping them. I stood there, not lifting a finger, until she left. I took my time tidying up. The other TA is useless and was barely helping. 2 hours passed, now 9 p.m., and the lab was barely cleaned up. The professor started panicking, saying he still had to write lectures, do his own experiments, and then have an hour drive home. He had to help clean up. I did the same thing the next week and the professor went into a full-on panic attack. He told me that I could clean up early next week. I told him that unfortunately the extra hours I put into cleaning for the last 2 weeks used up all my hours for the semester, so I wouldn't be in. I heard that the next week was an absolute hit show and the other TA complained that they were there almost until midnight. Smiley face edit. Some people have been wondering why the other TA wasn't out of hours too. He might have been Buddha slacked on reporting his hours all semester, so he was stuck there until the end. Also, the professor couldn't leave us in the lab alone, so he couldn't go do his experiments, and it is obvio safety level 2 lab, so he isn't allowed to bring his laptop in, can't work on lectures. He was stuck there until we were finished, lol. Stop slacking off and get to those insurance denials? Sure thing, boss. This happened a few years ago, but was reminded of it because a lot of it is becoming public. Insurance companies are not your friends and will do everything they can do to save money, including not paying for your medically necessary services. There's a lot of news coming out about insurance companies using algorithms to deny claims and doctors signing off on them. Before algorithms, they would have minimum wage employees reading over these claims for the doctors instead. That's what I was. I was 19 years old, working for insurance companies denying claims. I would be the first line for doctors to call and give their case for why they thought they needed a service or medicine. For some reason, 19-year-old me when no medical experience was allowed to tell these doctors that services were not needed medically. This job was the easiest, yet most miserable job experience I ever had. I was only able to last a few months there. During my last 2 weeks, I was really slacking off. I was just so burned out. I couldn't stand denying yet another case where someone needed meds and the insurance company didn't want to pay for them. I was reprimanded for no working hard enough and getting processed. Insert malicious compliance. I worked faster than I ever had before. That's because I approved every case that came before. Every doctor I spoke to, I just gave them approval. Every prior authorization I saw was approved. During my first week, I did this once and was told to not do it again because I have to follow company guidelines, but I didn't care at this point. I probably was able to approve 50+ cases before I quit. I hope it made a difference to those people. Health insurance companies. My BF gave himself an allergic reaction to get rid of his boss. Not my story, but my BF's. He doesn't like writing, but we've been listening to a lot of Reddit stories and this story came up. His family confirmed this happened, so it's not made up. When my BF, Jake, was 19, he had a job at a smoothie shop. He worked with 3 other people and his boss. We'll call him Michael. Jake's one stipulation before getting his job was that he not work with peanut butter since he is allergic. He'll break out in hives and if ingested his throat will swell. Not bad enough for EpiPen, but bad enough to need Benadryl. At this job they made protein alls and it was made with peanut butter. One day during a rush, Jake was at the sink when Michael threw a big bowl of leftover peanut butter in at the sink and told Jake to wash it. Jake argued and told him he can't touch it and that he'd have a breakout. Michael argued with him and told him to do it. So, Jake, being the stubborn astard he is, said okay. Fine. Roughly 5 minutes later, Jake's hands and arms were covered in hives. So once his arms had visible hives, he took a picture and sent it in the workgroup chat the owners were in saying, "Can someone cover my shift? I'm a tad under the weather," with pictures of his hands. He walked out before anyone responded. Someone covered his shift and the owners came in with the girl who covered the rest of his shift to yell at Michael. The next day, the girl told Jake about Michael getting chewed out by the owners. The owners called Jake and apologized for what happened. Long story short, that along with stealing money from the registers and being creepy with the high school girls, Michael was fired. Jake quit shortly after. Just because. For people commenting that was stupid and allergic reactions get worse, yes, he's well aware. He was a spiteful teen with no sense of self-preservation. Just pettiness, it's just a little possible death. The owners liked him and gave him an espresso machine when he left, so he says, it was worth it. No. He wouldn't and won't do it again. Not allowed to use the phone at the desk? This one is based on an experience my wife had at a previous job, around 12 years ago. My wife, GF at the time, worked for a small IT recruitment company as a recruiter. The offices were quite small, situated on the first floor of an office block with no balcony or kitchen, or any place to really take a proper lunch break. So, my wife just sat at her desk during her allocated tea and lunch breaks and browsed her phone. Her PC was locked from accessing any websites such as FB and such. She found out that she was reported several times for being on her phone at her desk, something that was not allowed while working, but argued that she was on her lunch break and that she was not working and could be on her phone. She was then told that she cannot be on her phone at her desk as her colleagues can't know that she's on a break. She argued that there is nowhere to go for breaks, except for downstairs, and outside, a place where the smokers take regular breaks. But, nope, she was not allowed on her phone at her desk. So, from that day on, whenever the group of smokers took a break, she would go downstairs and stand with them, browse her phone, and come up with them. This meant that she took breaks as frequently as smokers did, and she was away from her desk far more than she was taking her previous breaks for. It's small, but she felt a little victory inside. Luckily, she didn't stay in that job long. Don't let your kid have consequences? Okay. So, I'm a 23F nanny. For the family I work for, there are 7 kids. Yes, 7. All ranging from 14 years old to 10 months old. I've been working for them for 8 months. And never really had an issue. They are a good family for the most part. A key part here is the kids are all homeschooled, so they do not get out a lot. Unfortunately, that leads to mom and dad spoiling them quite a lot. And since I've started had a bit of a discipline issue. They throw tantrums, throw things and scream a lot. Finally, mom recently put on discipline because their tantrums led to me getting an injury. I was pushed down the stairs. So she implemented a timeout routine. And it was going well for almost everyone. Here's where the story truly begins. The second to youngest at 2.5, almost 3. His tantrums are some of the worst, and instead of really disciplining him, she coddles. If he screams and yells, she just picks him up and gives him whatever he wants. He will also throw things and hit whoever is telling him no. And mom doesn't do anything. On Wednesday this week, mom had an appointment, and when he woke up from his nap and she wasn't there, he freaked out. I tried to calm by playing games, food, or reading books. But nothing worked. He just got louder and more aggressive. He even hit me auntie's siblings. Eventually he woke the baby, and when I got her, tried to even hurt her. So with no other real options working to calm him down, I pick him up, sit him on his bed, and said, "Time out, you do not behave this way. When you calm down, you can come out." He finally is calming down after several minutes, and mom comes home. She was quite upset that he got a timeout because she says that he is too young and doesn't know better. Now I understand he is young, but I've been a nanny for a while and I have learned 2 to 3 is normal age for discipline, so they learn to know better. I only do a minute per year age and only goes longer. If they can't calm down though, I check in every minute. She was also upset I used his room as a timeout. Now that part one get and can understand that at this age associating timeout with where he sleeps. I can agree we don't do that. But I had to ask, when he's acting like this, what do you want me to do? She said, let me handle it. If I'm not the re-give him what he wants, it's not worth the fight. Okay, dude, but what if it's something I can't give? Cher replied, if you can't just let him go through, it'll calm down quickly. I looked at her like, are you serious? You do realize how he can be right, but okay. Cue malicious compliance. The next day mom had another appointment and she was gone when he woke up. And of course he wanted her and only her. I said, sorry, she's not here, why don't we play a game? He screams no. I ask if he wants a snack? No, he screams and starts slapping at my hands. I ask to go read a book or go to his sibling's room for playtime. He screams again and hit me in the face. I told him please don't hit me. So he screams in my face and goes off throwing things at me and everyone around and just goes off. I tell everyone to go to their rooms. I tried everything to calm him down and it didn't work, so I did exactly what she told me. Absolutely nothing. He continues his tirade, throwing things, pulling things off shelves, and screaming. I obviously kept them from things that would hurt him like glass, ceramics, and when he got on a table to push something, I picked him up and put him down. Thought it'd bite me really hard when I did that. Not enough to bleed, but enough to leave a good mark. I let this go for about 15-ish minutes until Mom came home. And when she did, he was still freaking out. She just goes, "What is going on?" I explained the situation and told her I'm just doing what she said and letting him cry it out till he calms down. She said, "That's not what I meant." I asked, "What did you want?" She didn't really have an answer. I told Harry couldn't use discipline and I couldn't calm him. You said to let him go, he'd calm down, and he hasn't yet. I made sure anything dangerous was taken away, but I didn't know what else I could do. Now, respectively, I could have picked up what he threw around, but I wanted her to see what he was capable of. And I wasn't going to risk getting hurt again from taking things away. She looked upset but didn't say anything and just looked at him, still throwing his tantrum. The baby wakes up and she goes to get her. When she comes back to try and calm him, he screams to pick him up and he hits her and keeps going till she puts the crying baby on the ground and picks him up. I was kinda shocked she fed into it. I told her he's old enough to know what he's doing. He knows that he'll get what he wants when he does these things, and it's only going to get worse. And if it's going to continue, I'm going to continue to do nothing because I won't risk getting hurt or the other kids in the process. I showed her my bite mark and she went pale a bit and said, "He did that?" I said, "Yes, he did." She took a breath and said, "Why don't you go home for the day and I'll talk to Dad about this?" When I came to work this morning, there was a timeout chair for him, and I'm allowed to use it at my discretion. Edit. So I will say, because I told in the comments I only get paid $22 an hour and it is low. I am quitting this job soon. Or rather, I already did. My last week is in May. I promised it'd stay till the end, then I have a much better paying job backed up. And yes, I did get extra pay for the stairs incident, not the bite, but yes, for the stairs.